All right. Well, folks, I'm here on the line with Dr. Jeffrey Blair, and he's just published a new book. Actually, it's not just, I guess. How long has the book been out?
Actually, it's only been out about 3 weeks.
So I guess I get to say just. And it's called Unleash Your Inner Health, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And how's it going so far? Like, what's the reception of the book been?
Oh man, it's been unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think it's the reception has been really good because people need this book at this time.
Right.
There's never been a time in our history that we've been more unhealthy. The obesity rate is higher than it's ever been. The diabetes rate is higher. People are fatigued and stressed and anxious and in pain. And celebrities are dying left and right from opioid addiction. Right. And not just celebrities, but regular people. 90 people a day around the world die from opioid abuse. So the book is out at the right time, and that's why the reception has been so good. People need this at this time.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It's a very timely book. It's really broad in scope. We talked about this briefly before the call. You've covered a lot of ground, and I said it before, but I'll say it again for the benefit of the folks listening. I think this could really be like 5 books instead of 1 book. So I'll just lay that out for you as a challenge for the future if you're ready to take it up. I think there's a lot to be said. For people who don't know you already, let's talk a little bit about your background. You are a PhD instead of and not a medical doctor, correct? What's your background?
Correct. Yeah, I have a PhD in nutritional science.
Okay.
I'm a master herbalist. I spent a couple years in studying herbal medicine at a college in California. And then just for the last 25 years or so, this has been my life's passion. So I'm a certified clinical nutritionist. I'm a master herbalist. Board certified in alternative medicine. So it's just my passion.
And what's your practice like? You see patients on a regular basis, or you're consulting?
A little bit of everything. My passion really is to research and write,
right.
And teach. So anytime I can get in front of an audience, whether it's 1 person or 500 people, that's really what my passion is. Yes, I do see clients. I don't call them patients. I call them clients. But I do see clients on a fairly regular basis, and then the rest of the time I'm just researching and writing and trying to teach.
That sounds like a pretty ideal setup, if you ask me. Teaching and writing are both some of my passions as well. So,
right.
I'm envious. I'm busy running a tea shop.
Which is how I came across you, because the book that I wrote last came out in 2015. And it's called Runology,
right?
And it's the study of running endurance and all kinds of stuff. And it's really about my passion for running and fitness. And so I was researching for that book back in 2014 as I was writing it, and came across this little known herb, this little known tea that I had never heard of before, even as a master herbalist, called Jiaogulan. And so I researched it. In regards to running endurance and fitness. And that's how I came across it. And then I researched, well, I got to have some of this. Where do I get it?
Sure.
And that's how I met up with you. And I have to say that I've tried a couple Jiagulans over the years, but your quality and freshness and manufacturing practices and all that is the reason that I will only get my Jiagulan from you. So I'm drinking my 3rd cup of Jiagulan as we speak.
All right. Well, I appreciate the plug. We do work really hard on it. I'm glad you tracked us down.
Sure.
Yeah. We'll talk about Jiagulan maybe a little later in the interview. But we have lots of endurance athletes who gravitate towards Jiagulan. And I agree with you. It's an herb that a lot more herbalists really should get familiar with. It's
right.
There's a long history to why it's not so well known. We can talk about that if you want. But it's I hope more people can get on board with that. So let's talk a little bit about the book. You cover a really broad range of topics, and I'll just kind of briefly summarize it. But feel free to jump in if I miss something really important.
Sure.
You cover the mental game of making health changes, which I think is something a lot more people should talk about, because it's there's so much information out there.
Right.
It's I was about to use an expression from my my granddad, who wasn't the most polite guy in the world, but he's like, opinions are like
right.
Something holds. Everybody's got one. Yeah. So and I think the internet's just made that worse. And it's like people get exposed to a lot of ideas. They get exposed to a lot of health changes that might be beneficial to them. But there's a big difference between knowing that you should do something and actually implementing it. So you cover the mental game, which I thought was important. There's a discussion about diet. And my sense is that you're more or less following a ketogenic diet. Is that a right interpretation?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I, like everyone else in the world, have had weight fluctuations. Even though I'm an athlete and I'm an active runner and fitness buff, I've had weight fluctuations throughout my life, like many people have. And like so many other people, I've tried every diet there is, and I've tried the low fat diets, and I've tried counting calories and starving myself, and I learned that diets never work. I mean, it has to be a lifestyle change, and the lifestyle change that I chose was the low carb diet, the ketogenic diet.
Right.
The diet that I talk about will not leave you starving. It will not leave you hungry. You can eat as much as you want. I mean, this morning I had sausage and eggs, and I had a bunch of them.
Right.
So I'm not hungry.
Right.
But there were no carbs in there.
Right.
But I'm not like an Atkins diet kind of guy. I mean, I say there are a place for carbs, certain carbs. Certainly, vegetables and fruits can be a part of the lifestyle. But as I say in the book, it's everything white.
That needs to be eliminated. Right.
Yeah, white rice, white flour, white bread, white pasta, white potatoes, and certainly, of course, the most damaging of all, white sugar. So, certainly a modified ketogenic diet is what I like.
How long have you been doing keto?
About 2 years.
About 2 years, yeah. So that's relatively recent. Yeah. Did you find the transition difficult, or it was easy for you?
Well, at first, as anything, it was kind of difficult. I mean, the first few weeks were pretty difficult, but then your body adjusts to it. The whole book really, from the mental aspect to the diet to the herbs and everything, I'm sure we'll talk about later, is about balance.
Sure.
The most simple definition of health is balance, and that's what our body wants. That's why I say unleash your inner health. It's really talking about unleashing and harnessing your body's desire to be balanced,
right?
Because that's what health is. So all of it plays a hand, as you said earlier, talking about the mental aspect of it. Your shoulds have to become musts.
Right.
We have to stop saying, I should lose weight, I should stop smoking, I should get up and exercise. And we should replace should with must. I must eat better, I must exercise, I must stop smoking, whatever it is.
Sure.
Our bodies become what our mind thinks.
Right.
So we have to redefine the way we think, we have to redefine how we think about health and our goals and all that, and it all starts between the ears. A healthy and fit body begins between the ears.
Yep, that's absolutely true. You probably hear this from your clients. For me, it's like my mind plays a mental game with me, right? So
right.
Even though I could say to myself, Ralph, you must stop eating potatoes, right?
Right.
Somewhere in the back of my mind is this little voice who goes like, well, yeah, Ralph, you're telling yourself must because you should, right? How do you get over that little mental game that you're and I think smart people like you probably have that challenge more than the average person, right?
Oh yeah. Well, here's how I deal with it, and I talk about it in the book, and I copied this line from a guy that I have so much respect for, and I follow him, and he's my guru. And it's Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins says everybody's lives change in a moment. You have to find what that moment is before your mind can actually start thinking the way it's supposed to think. So what can that moment be? For me, I've always been fairly healthy. I've had weight fluctuations, but I've always been fairly healthy. Excuse me. I went to the doctor for a routine checkup 3 years ago, and my triglyceride level was too high.
Right. Okay.
Now I'm not worried, as you read in the book. I don't care a thing about cholesterol. cholesterol, that's a scam. We can talk about that if you want. But triglycerides, I know from being a PhD in nutrition, is dangerous. A high triglyceride level is dangerous. So that scared me. So that was my moment. That was the moment that changed me. For other people, their moment may be, they're overweight and tired, and they're tired of being tired and overweight, or, you've got to find your moment. You've got to, if it's somebody that smokes, it may be that they have lesions on their lungs, and that's their moment.
Sure.
That's going to make them change the way they think. So everyone's lives change in a moment. For me, the moment was a high triglyceride level. That scared me. And I knew from my studies the only way to get triglycerides down is to cut out sugar.
Right.
Your liver converts sugar into triglycerides, and that's why triglycerides go up. Right. So I was a sugarholic. I'll raise my hand in a meeting. I'm a sugarholic.
Right.
Always have and always will be. If my wife cooks something, she makes a pie, I have to leave the room because of the temptation.
Right.
But I'm a sugarholic, always have been, always will be. But that was the moment that changed. So everyone has to find their moment, and I don't know what that moment is.
Right.
But in everyone's lives, there's a moment that makes them think, I've got to start doing things differently.
Yeah, and I think, hopefully people can find that moment when it's, a precursor to serious illness. Like, you're finding your triglycerides high, that's a warning sign, but there's nothing serious wrong yet.
Right.
But, by the time you find lesions in your lungs or, something like that, like it's, not that these things can't be fixed, but,
sure.
Hopefully you find that moment before it becomes a serious situation, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Ketogenic diet, exercise, you're an advocate of running.
Right.
And you also talk about Tai Chi, which I thought was interesting because I'm a Tai Chi guy. And then we talked a lot about herbs, and you cover a broad range of different herbs with highlights on a few things like jaugalan and some other things that we'll get into in a minute. And the vitamin D thing I thought was interesting. So I think that's a topic that deserves a lot more attention as well.
Sure.
So let's talk about the ketogenic diet a little bit more. You're probably familiar with Dr. Mercola's book that just came out, right? Fat.
I have seen it. I haven't read it.
Yeah, he's basically advocating the ketogenic diet as well.
Right.
I actually advocate fasting and ketogenic together. So I do intermittent fasting.
Right.
And then I use that to kick me into ketogenic mode.
Sure.
And then, more or less, most of the time I try to eat ketogenic, although I also have the problem with sometimes falling off the wagon and eating carbs. I have the same problem with my wife that you do. She'll go into the kitchen and start cooking something sweet, and I can so smell sugar now. Like I never sort of realized until I went keto, I never really understood that sugar had a smell. Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but now she'll cook, and I'm like, oh, that's not good.
In our brains seek it out. Right. I mean, it's a more powerful stimulant and drug than heroin and cocaine. I mean, on the receptor sites in our brain, it's a powerful drug that people don't realize how dangerous sugar is.
When you're in keto, I mean, this is something I'll just tell you from personal experience. When I'm in ketogenic mode, the only downside of it, my energy levels are great. I actually, if I can not be around other people who are eating a lot of sugar and carbs, I don't find it too difficult to stay on the diet. But my breath smells horrible when I'm in keto mode. Does that happen to you? I know it happens to a lot of people, but is that an experience you have?
It does. It does, and my wife is very quick to point that out to me.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah, she's like, "Can you roll over at night?" Is there some way to fix that?
No, I mean there are some herbs you can do, like chlorophyll and stuff like that. It's an internal deodorizer, but no, I just try to stay away from people when it's in that mode. But yeah, and talking about energy, I mean, as a runner and an athlete, a competitive runner, I thought, okay, this is going to kill my running career because I'm going to cut carbs out, and I used to carb load and all this stuff before runs. And I actually have more endurance now than I've ever had. Right. It's amazing how the body adjusts to what you're doing and becomes a fat burner instead of a carb burner. or a ketone burner instead of a carb burner, and I have more energy and more endurance than I've ever had.
Yeah, and I find that I think more clearly when I'm in ketogenic mode.
Oh,
I think my brain works better, and you avoid that whole sort of like after a big meal crash thing that happens.
Right.
So I think ketogenic's the way to go. You're not an advocate of fasting, though, right?
I'm not necessarily not an advocate of fasting.
Okay.
I'm actually trying to learn more about it because the intermittent fasting is becoming so popular now,
right.
That I am trying to do a little research and learn a little bit more about it.
Okay. Yeah,
so
I do.
I'm not an advocate. It's just not what I do.
It's not part of your regime yet. Yeah.
It may be because I'm constantly evolving and learning. I mean, I've been doing this 25 years and I learn something new every day.
Right. Absolutely. I do time restricted eating. I basically just skip breakfast.
Right.
And then once a quarter, so every 3 months, I'll fast for 4 to 5 days, just depending on sort of how it strikes me.
Right.
And that seems to work well for me. And once I get into that, I mean, that kicks me into ketogenic mode. And then once I'm in ketogenic mode, then, coming back and not eating the carbs and stuff, I find really easy to do. Right up until I fall off the wagon, and then I need to start back over again. My wife and I did a vacation about 2 months ago, and we went to one of those all-inclusive resorts, right? And they're dragging out the desserts and stuff like all the time. And we all have like this head trash, right? These things that have been programmed into us when we were little kids. And somewhere in my head is this head trash that says like, if you paid for it, you have to eat it. Right. Mm-hmm. So they're putting these sugars and carbs and desserts in front of me, and I'm like, well, even though I got like somehow I like indirectly have paid for this meal, so I should eat this meal, right? And
and you know what? And there's nothing wrong with that. And I tell my clients every day, and I say it in the book, don't beat yourself up about that. I mean, you're gonna it's human nature to do that, and it's okay. I have cheat days occasionally. Now that I'm 2 or 3 years into this lifestyle, I have more cheat days than I used to because I know my body can handle it.
Right.
At first, I was, I was scraping the meat off of lasagna because my wife would cook lasagna. Right. I would scrape the meat off of it and eat just the meat, and she thought, "You're a nut. You're crazy."
Right.
So that's how I did it in the beginning. But I had the mindset, I had the goal, I had the focus. Right. And I stuck to it. Now I may have a little slice of the lasagna, and I think that's okay. But
sure,
don't beat yourself up for cheat days.
Okay, I won't do that. Yeah, the wives of herbalists are a long-suffering group of people. I love the stories in your book about the whole thing with the tea bags and all that stuff. Those are great stories, and my wife suffers a lot of similar oddities. I'm always stopping in the middle of some public place and eating some plant that's someone that's part of someone's garden, or it's an ornamental, or something, and I'm like, no, you can eat those.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and she just like you said your wife does. My wife rolls her eyes at me and tries to.
She rolls her eyes at me all the time, says I'm a nut, but I've got her doing things to keep her healthy, so she's a believer now.
Okay, good. Let's go. I guess go to exercise now. So you're into running. And let's talk a little bit about the difference between high intensity interval training and running, and where do they cross over?
I think there has to be a balance of both. I mean, I incorporate both into my weekly routine. I'll get in a longer, slower run just to keep the heart beating and keep the lungs used to taking in oxygen, and that's the endurance part of it. And then a couple times a week I do sprints. Mm-hmm. I'll sprint. I'll go to the track. We have a track nearby. I'll go to the track and do sprints, or I'll do it on the treadmill. Right. But that's the high intensity interval training, and I think that's the most beneficial way to exercise. Right. I think there has to be a balance, but the high intensity interval training is simply where you work out really hard for 20 or 30 seconds, mm-hmm. and you rest for 30 seconds to a minute is the way I do it. So I'll sprint for 30 seconds and then I'll walk for a minute.
Okay.
I'll sprint for 30 seconds and then I'll walk for a minute. And that trains your heart and your cardiovascular system and your respiratory system to handle stress and get used to the heavier load. So it makes your heart stronger. It makes your circulatory system stronger and healthier. It's the best way to lose weight because you continue burning fat long after you've stopped the exercise. It ramps your metabolism and your hormones better than anything.
Right.
So I've been doing that for quite a while now, and have found that not just based on the research, but in my life, it works well.
Okay. Do you worry about repetitive stress? Like just, I've never got the running habit. We can talk about why I don't have the running habit if you want to. But one of the things that I worry about is just repetitive stress injuries. What's your take on that?
If you have good form and you maintain good form, you don't get injured very often. I'm 50. I'll be 50 years old this year, so I do have old joints,
right,
or older joints. And so, I won't say that I never have aches and pains because I do. But as an herbalist, I know how to take care of it. Sure. I talk about curcumin in the book and the anti-inflammatory benefits of curcumin. There's the anti-inflammatory benefits of boswellia and ginger.
Yeah.
And curcumin. So as long as you're doing something to counteract that repetitive stress and the inflammation that it causes, the cortisol levels and all that, as long as you're doing something to counteract that, I think it's a problem. It's not a problem for me.
Running's not one of my routines. I do Tai Chi, and I do high intensity interval training, and I also do strength training. So my workout is that combination. I like to run fast.
Yeah, me too.
But I don't like to run, I don't like to jog. It's not trendy to say jog anymore, but I see a lot of joggers who call themselves runners anyway. But I just have never been able to get into, just pounding the pavement for long distances. If you take me to the woods, my favorite thing to do is to find a trail in the woods someplace,
right,
and pretend or just get my mental head into I'm chasing something or someone's chasing me. Then I can run, and I have a blast doing it. I love that, jumping over obstacles and running through the woods and running around things that I enjoy. I have just never been able to get myself mentally into the space where I enjoy the long run.
And I'm the same way. I do not enjoy long runs. The longest run you'll ever see me do is maybe 5 or 6 miles, and that's rare. A long run for me is 3 miles.
Okay.
And I'll run it at a fairly quick pace, but I've just always been very competitive.
Okay.
Football and basketball and baseball growing up, and playing sports, I loved it. Then when I got into college, I became a bodybuilder. I was into weightlifting and powerlifting. Okay. I considered myself a bodybuilder, but I was really more of a power lifter. I had a power lifter build, and I enjoyed getting in the weight room and bench pressing as much as I could lift, and maxing out when people were watching and grunting and groaning, and it was just so I did bench press contests and powerlifting contests and things like that. And I got addicted to that. But as we talked about injuries, as I started getting older, as I approached my 40s, I started having horrible shoulder pain from all those years of heavy bench pressing. Mm-hmm. So I decided, I can be in pain forever, or I can quit bench pressing.
Right.
So I quit that. I still like you. I still go to the weight room, and I do some lifting, but it's lightweight for the most part, and just to stay in shape, basically. But I'm very competitive. So when I couldn't compete in powerlifting anymore, I had to find something else to compete in. And
there you go.
I'm not a very good golfer. That was out.
Right.
I tried tennis, but I'm an okay tennis player.
Right.
But I want to win trophies, and I couldn't win trophies playing tennis.
Okay.
So I started running, and I found that I could run short distances pretty well. So I started winning 5K trophies, and then I enter some track events locally from time to time. and do pretty well. So it's the way that I can stay competitive also.
Okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think I lack that competitive gene. I tend to be more of a solo exerciser, but
Right.
I just you're just more athletically gifted than I am. So I just
Oh, I don't know. I'm not gifted at all. I just work hard at it.
Okay. So let's talk about herbs. You cover some of my favorite herbs, actually a bunch of my favorite herbs in the book.
Okay.
Jaugalan, of course. So I appreciate all the kind things you say about Jaugalan. There you go. It's my single go-to herb. I mean, I consume a lot of herbs, but the one that I have to have every day is my Jaugalan.
Right.
Probably the most controversial part of your book is going to be the discussion about cannabis.
Sure.
Yeah. Have you got any feedback about that? Have people any
No, actually,
resistance?
people are very receptive to it. Yeah, people are very receptive to it. I think the tide is changing, and I think the mood of the country is going that way. I think more people are for it than are against it.
Yeah, I think that change. I agree with you. I think that change is happening. I think it's not going to be long before cannabis is legal nationwide. I think it's it might be 10 years, it might be 20 years. I don't have that visibility, but I think clearly that day is coming. You didn't talk in your book a lot about the forms of cannabis that you recommend. Do you recommend eating the whole leaf, or you mentioned CBD oil a little bit, but talk a little bit about how you recommend incorporating cannabis into your health routine.
Sure. I saw a blog or a post or something from Tommy Chong recently from Cheech and Chong,
Right.
and he said all cannabis use is medicinal. Meaning that there's a group of people saying that, hey, if you smoke it, you're just a pothead, but if you use it medicinally, you have to use the oil or the spray or eat it or something like that, or even suppositories. But Tommy was saying, and I agree with that. Tommy Chong said all cannabis use is medicinal. Even if you smoke it, you're getting some benefit from it. But when I talk about cannabis use medicinally, I'm not really talking about smoking. That's your personal preference. Whatever you do there is up to you, and I'm not going to judge anybody. But medicinally, there is not a single plant on the planet that's a more powerful healer than the cannabis plant. Mm-hmm. It's gotten a bad rap over the years, obviously. It's a Schedule I drug in the United States, crazy, meaning it's dangerous.
Right.
And all that. It's no one ever in the history of the world has died from cannabis use. There's not one single instance of someone dying from it. Yet 90 people a day die from opioids. 150,000 people a year die from prescription drugs. 400,000 people a year die from cigarettes and alcohol. I mean, the list goes on of these proved substances. Yet cannabis is scheduled as the most dangerous drug there is, and it's the most powerful healing plant, and it's the least dangerous. So, I talk about CBD oil because I think that's a very powerful component of the cannabis and a very powerful healer. And where I live in North Carolina, CBD is legal, but cannabis is not.
Okay.
So I do touch on CBD because it's legal all across the nation, where medical cannabis is not. So if CBD is the only thing you can get your hands on, then it's certainly a powerful healer. It helps my wife's migraines. I've seen it stop seizures. I've seen it stop some serious pain and anxiety.
Right.
But the whole plant, as an herbalist, I believe in the synergy of the whole plant. So the whole plant, I think, if you can get whole plant cannabis oil, or if you can eat it, then certainly you're getting the synergistic effect of the whole plant.
Yeah, I tell people when they ask me about cannabis, I'm an herbalist, and a plant's a plant is a plant is a plant, right? And
exactly.
You can overdose on mint if you want to, right? Like
sure.
It's all things in moderation, right? And,
right.
Absolutely. And to me,
but yet, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
But yet, You can overdose on a lot of things, but that's the beauty of cannabis. No one has ever overdosed from it. There's according to the studies, according to the research, there's not a level of cannabis that can cause an overdose. So that makes it very interesting to me. That's the one thing really you can't overdose on.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I can't recall ever having seen anyone talking about a lethal dose of cannabis.
Right.
That's an interesting fact. So I mean, I think cannabis is just another herb, and you can it has health benefits, and there are things about it that might not be as good for your health if you use it the wrong way or whatever. But just informed use, I think, is absolutely fine.
Exactly.
I tend to stay away from recommending smoking to the people that I recommend cannabis to, just because of the antioxidants.
Exactly.
I think it's when you set something on fire, you're just creating tons and tons of oxidants.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there are toxins and oxidants being produced when you do that. So I agree with that.
Right, exactly. So I tend to recommend to people what you just said, which is to ingest it. I think that's probably the best way to go.
I prefer the oil. You can ingest it several ways. I prefer the oil. It gets directly into the bloodstream that way.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I'm sort of on a mission to try to get people to understand is herbs work better when you consume the whole herb.
Exactly.
I'm a scientist, and I understand that complete herbs are hard to study. Right? So as scientists, what we do is what's called reductionism, right? We take the thing and we break it down into little tiny pieces, trying to understand how each of the individual pieces work, because we can't study how the whole thing works. And that ends up with things like pharmaceutical medications, and it ends up with things like extracts, where we have made a value judgment about what part of the plant is good for you and what part of the plant isn't good for you. And I think we're not as smart as we think we are.
Right, our bodies were designed to utilize the whole plant.
Right, exactly.
And if you isolate a chemical from the plant or a substance from the plant, excuse me, then you've turned it into a pharmaceutical, in my opinion.
Yeah,
your body doesn't know how to utilize it as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Let's talk about some of your other herbs that you talked about. You're a big fan of kava.
It's my favorite herb.
There you go.
So I start every morning with my Jiagulan tea, and I end every day. Start every day with Jiagulan. I end every day with kava.
Okay.
And so, as I say in the book, every herbalist has his or her favorite herb, and happens to be kava. But there are a lot of great herbs out there, and I love them all. And I use many of them, but kava is my favorite.
Is your go-to? Yeah. So tell the folks listening a little bit about what the benefits of kava are.
It just instantly relaxes me. There's kava is the root of a plant that grows in the South Pacific, specifically Vanuatu, Hawaii, Fiji, Samoa, but the Pacific Islands is where it originates, and it's the root of a plant that when you grind it, mix it with water and drink it, it instantly calms the central nervous system and muscle relaxing properties and all that. But it's anti-anxiety. There are studies out of Duke University and Maryland University that prove that kava works just as well, if not better, than benzodiazepines for anxiety, but without side effects. But for me, it's just very relaxing. At the end of a stressful day, I like to have a cup or two of kava and just chill out.
How do you prepare your kava? You use the root itself, or you're using capsules? What do you do?
No, I use the root itself, actually a ground powder of the root, and I just mix it with about 4 to 6 ounces of water. Stir it and chug it because it tastes horrible.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
And it's funny, my wife will laugh at me and people will laugh at me because I've been consuming kava probably, I haven't missed more than 2 or 3 days in the last 15 years. I mean, I consume kava nightly for the last 15 years, and and I'll still drink it sometimes, and I'll go, ugh. You know? And people will laugh at me and say, "Aren't you used to that by now?" And I say, "Well, you never really get used to it,
right?
But the effect is worth the taste, in my opinion. Now, there are capsules and there are tinctures and there are ways to get around the taste, but I like the whole effect. I like as an herbalist, I like the synergy of the whole herb, and I like to do it the way they do it traditionally. And traditionally, in the islands, they mix it in a cup and you drink it.
Do you ferment it at all, or you just add water to it and drink it?
Just add water to it and chug.
Yeah. Okay. Hot water, I presume. Yeah.
No, actually, I prefer cold water or room temperature.
Okay. And how long do you let it brew when you do that?
I just stir it and
so you're taking the powder straight on. You're really not doing an infusion. You're drinking the powder.
Yeah.
And letting you. Okay. I got
exactly.
you. Yeah.
The water is just the transport mechanism.
There you go. Yeah. I'm not that experienced with kava. I have had kava only in the South Pacific. That's the only place I've done it. I've never done it in the U.S.
Well, you had good stuff then.
You know, it was pretty horrible tasting.
Yeah.
And the method of preparation, you know, you have to think really hard about whether or not that's something you want to participate in.
Right.
But because they had I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure you know this already, but they were basically brewing it by everybody taking turns spitting into the
Right.
bowl.
That's the original traditional way of brewing, making kava in the South Pacific. And originally it would have to be a virgin, and she would have to chew it and spit it and make the kava, and then only the chief and then dignitaries could drink it. But that's changed now, where pretty much anybody can have it.
Yeah, I'd say there was not a virgin within 20 miles of the place that I had this stuff.
So everybody got to chew a little bit.
It was kind of just a little roadside place that a fellow herbalist took me to in Vanuatu, and it was just a bunch of guys standing around, you know, partaking together. But
Vanuatu is the home of kava. I mean, that's where it was first originated, and historically, and that's where I get my kava from. I have a guy that imports it directly from Vanuatu and then sends it to me.
Okay, fantastic. I think you list the source of that in your book, right in the back of the book.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple companies that I deal with and really believe in, and they're listed in the back of the book. So for Jiagulon and kava and some other things, I tell you where to get the good stuff. Okay,
sounds good. Let's talk about berberine a little bit. We get a lot of people asking us for berberine. And I think it's because there's this push now to blend Jiagulon with berberine and quercetin. Have you tried putting those together? Is that a combination that makes sense to you?
Yes, because they're all three powerful AMPK activators. So I talk a little bit about AMPK in the book. Basically, it's an enzyme that every cell of the body uses to regulate the health of the cell. And there are certain things that activate that enzyme, and Jiagulon, berberine, and quercetin all do that. So yeah, there are right now there's a big push for people to come up with a formula or put those three together. I think Jiagulon by itself does a great job of doing that. I think berberine by itself does an okay job of doing that. The three together probably work pretty well, but I think Jiagulon on its own is a powerful AMPK activator, and the others are beneficial as well.
Yeah, I think so. It's I'm thinking about whether or not a blend of some kind makes sense. The problem is, that it's when you blend roots and leaves together, then you have a struggle, right? Because you're not really the brewing times and the brewing temperatures and everything are different when you're trying to combine roots and leaves and flowers together. So I'm personally, as an herbalist, I'm struggling a little bit with whether or not that's something that makes sense for us. But when I look at the search results on our site, we get a lot of people coming to our site searching for berberine and quercetin as well. So it's something we're thinking about.
Sure.
Vitamin D. What's your?
So important. I wrote a whole chapter about it.
Yeah, it's. I'm a big fan of vitamin D. Where do you come out on the whole question of sun exposure to get vitamin D versus the risks of cancer?
Okay, so my take on it is that there's a huge vitamin D deficiency epidemic in the United States and around the world, but I'm really focusing on the United States. 85% or so, roughly, of people are vitamin D deficient. Vitamin D is the most important vitamin. It's really more like a hormone than a vitamin, but it's the key that turns on your immune system. It keeps your bones healthy. It helps produce hormones and regulate hormones, and so it's a very important component. But for the last 25 or 30 years, we've been told, stay out of the sun and lower your cholesterol.
Right.
Stay out of the sun and lower your cholesterol. Vitamin D is made from those two things. Vitamin D is made from cholesterol and sunlight. So no wonder there's a vitamin D deficiency, and people are getting sicker than ever and having all these problems with their immune systems and things because their vitamin D levels are so low. So I think that you do need to get some sunlight. Do it responsibly and don't burn, but you do need to get some sunlight. 20 to 30 minutes a day of sunlight combined with a good amount of cholesterol in your skin will produce vitamin D. So the two things that make vitamin D, we've been told for 25, 30 years to stay away from. So I'm a believer in getting 20 to 30 minutes or maybe more of sunlight a day. Just don't burn.
Right.
And I'm okay with moderately high cholesterol level.
Right. So eat your eggs and go out and catch some sun, right?
Exactly. Eat eggs while you're tanning.
There you go. I think that makes a lot of sense. It's vitamin D. I take a supplement just because right now I live someplace where we don't get as much sun as I would like to get. But if you live someplace where there's year-round sun, I think by far the best thing to do is just get out there and take your shirt off and get some sun every day. I guess when you're running, you get that opportunity where you are, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it embarrasses my wife, but I'll take my shirt off and run and get some sun.
Yeah, I guess you need a pretty large area of skin to get the vitamin D that you need in 20, 30 minutes,
Sure.
right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and longer than 20 or 30 minutes is fine. But let's start with that if you're new to it.
Okay. Did I pretty much cover the whole thing? What else did you want to talk about in the book that I forgot to mention?
I think we did cover it. I think, as I said, it all begins. It's a mental game. You have to find the moment that changes your life. You have to redefine how you think about yourself and how you think about your health. You have to find these herbs and these nutrients that have been proven to extend life and make you healthier. And exercise is a big part of it. Tai Chi and meditation and all that is a big part of it. I talk a little bit in the book about earthing and grounding. I think that's
interesting. Yeah,
an important component as well. But the body desires to be healthy. As I said earlier, the simplest definition of health is balance, and our bodies have a system built in that craves balance and wants balance, and so the book hopefully teaches you how to harness and unleash that system to bring balance and health to the body.
Fantastic. I think you've done a tremendous service by putting this book out there. For the folks who are listening, visit Amazon.com is the best place to grab it?
Amazon.com, Unleash Your Inner Health. And it was actually, I did a promotion on Amazon last week where it drove people to the book.
Right.
I gave it away for free for a few days last week.
Yeah.
And Amazon helped me promote that. And it actually, for about 2 days, was #1 on the Amazon bestseller list for Kindle books. So I was pretty proud of that. I didn't make any because it was a free promotion, but
Sure.
but people are interested in it. It showed me that at least people think, oh, this is something that I need to read or want to read, and so the interest is growing. And I appreciate you helping me get the word out.
No, my pleasure. I appreciate you making time to talk with us today. Folks, it's a timely book. It's an important book. So go to Amazon.com. It's Unleash Your Inner Health by Dr. Jeffrey Blair. All right. Thank you, Dr. Blair. I appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.